Hey there, preppers. Last week we talked about China quite a bit and how America views China as the biggest threat to the United States. And the invasion of Taiwan literally could cause our markets to crash, but there's a lot more to it than just that. I want to show you in this video. Watch this. You've probably heard of the BRICS alliance. If not, let me tell you, it stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they were a conglomerate which was originally set up just for trade, simply trading goods and services, but quickly became a large conglomerate of finance. And now they're set to welcome 30 new members in 2024, 30 new ones. And it's all about global trade and diplomacy, simply put. And this global trade and diplomacy is signaling a shift toward a more multipolar world order. And it's no longer simply an economic strength, but also a political influence on the global stage. This is huge, by the way, because again, at first it was just finance, but now political and even military. Whereas the nations explore a creation of a new currency unit to counter the US dollar dominance, which I'm sure you know, the United States currency, the reserve currency for the world, is now falling. And as we head further and further into inflation, we are struggling. Other countries that depend on the dollar are struggling. So BRICS is now setting up their own currency, basically to counteract the US dollar. So much so, look at this, the BRICS nations now stop taking the US dollar loans. So what now? And this always sets up a new world order. And don't think of necessarily a new world conglomerate world order, although that may happen too. New world orders take place all the time, well, every so many, 100, 200 years. We actually took it from our friends, the Brits, in the 1940s. Before that, the Dutch. Before that, a whole bunch of other countries. So it's always passed along. But we're seeing an era in which now the United States dollar is falling. And very well, this BRICS, or even more so, China, could be taking the lead in the world currency. United Kingdom's still around. So is the Dutch and other places too. But we definitely see some problems heading our way if this does happen. It is not going to be a walk in the park. Because unfortunately, it's not simply just a matter of a switch, but often is from a result of war. This same BRICS, we see North Korea, Russia, China, Iran, raising possibilities of simultaneous conflicts. Iran, by the way, is also now part of BRICS. So we saw the same thing with the British going into the United States. World War II led to that action. It very well could be another major or even world war that takes the United States out of that major top spot. I mean, United States not in the top spot is not as much as the worry. It's the world war that leads to that situation, and that's the direction we're heading. And that's why we talk about more specifically, not only do we see BRICS on the rise, taking out the U.S. currency, but China being looked at as the number one problem to the United States militarily, as China, their economy is not doing great, but their infrastructure is growing. And the United States, ours seems to be crumbling. And if we do see that switch in which China or BRICS takes over, the United States, we're going to have some serious problems here. And that's why we talk about this on Goshen Prepping. We have to prepare for this. A former Treasury official warns of complete economic implosion if the United States dollar loses the global reserve currency status. That's exactly what we're talking about here. A complete economic implosion. It would be the end of the US dollar, of course, but the entire global economic system would be in shambles. It's really hard to overstate exactly how catastrophic the abandonment of the United States dollar would be as the world's global reserve currency. Catastrophic. And what does a complete implosion of the global economic system look like? If that were to happen, you'd be looking at sky-high inflation just raging. Just think of the Weimar Republic kind of inflation. If you think inflation is bad now, just wait. And that is exactly what we must address and talk about specifically to prepare for. Because when we look at the Weimar Republic, the hyperinflation that kicked in, it wasn't inflation, it was hyperinflation kicked in, where it would cost millions and millions of Deutschmarks just to buy a loaf of bread. It was completely in shambles. It led to the entire country in shambles. And it's one of the things that literally took Germany into a world war, basically making it, desperate people, desperate times call for desperate measures. And that's what happened. So in the United States, we see inflation. We see shortages. I mean, the shortages right now are not huge. They very well may be coming. But inflation is here. And it's here to stay, sure, but that's nothing compared to what's going to happen if this switches over. So China's a major threat. As we see Chinese nationals coming to the United States, and by the way, China isn't saying, oh, look, they're leaving us. China's like, look, our people are there to basically make a presence around the world. This is not just the United States. We see Chinese nationals. It's all over the world. China is spreading its fingers around the world, and the United States is falling. I hate to say this. There is a chance we can turn around. There is certainly a chance. But we have to have a captain at the helm to make that happen. And unfortunately, right now, our captain at the helm, I even use that term very loosely, is now steering us straight for an iceberg. And when we hit it, it's going to sink. That's exactly what the direction we're heading and what we need to prepare for. And so as preppers, we have to be ready for this. We're talking about specifically, we're in an economic collapse. You have to have things to buy and sell and trade because the US dollar will be worth nothing. I always talk about gold backs. I'll link them below. But that's just one thing. Silver, commodities, anything that people have of value, food, obviously, stockpiling food. People love vices and liquor. Anything that somebody may need, you can use as a trade. Because if this does happen and we see a collapse, it is going to be a major catastrophic event in the United States. And unfortunately, it's going to lead to chaos, civil unrest, and that's just the beginning. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.